help this video go viral. I'm sure I'm gonna get some hate messages after this. Frankly, I don't care because this could save someone's life. I'm a nurse practitioner. I am licensed and certified. I am not on the front lines. I have a friend in New York City who's on the front lines. And for her safety, she cannot come out and say these things. So I am her voice. I'm not going to name names of people or hospitals for the safety of those involved. But this is her account, okay? I am her voice here. I'm gonna tell you what she has told me. She wants this to get out. Now, I'm sure this is not the case everywhere. I'm confident. I have friends that are in other places. They're on the front lines, they're in ICU, and it's not like this everywhere. But in New York City right now, in some of the hospitals, this is what is going on. People are sick, but they don't have to stay sick. They are killing them. They are not helping them. She used the word murder, coming from a nurse who went to New York City expecting to help. Patients are left to rot and die. Her words. She has never seen so much neglect. No one cares. They are cold and they don't care anymore. It's the blind leading the blind. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was on with some nurse friends of mine and we were discussing different medications that could be used to potentially help people. Doctors who were reporting around the country that they were using a combination of medications that were helping people. People were not dying when they were on these medications, they were getting better. Those medications are not being used in hospitals in New York City. What is happening is that they're putting people on nasal cannula. If they require more than 6 liters of nasal cannula, they get intubated, they go on the vent, or they get trached if there's not enough vents. They don't get high flow, no non-rebreather, no non-invasive ventilation, no CPAP, no BiPAP. They're on a closed system, the ventilator, versus a CPAP or a BiPAP for fear that it will spread the virus. Which, by the way, I know a nurse in Florida who was fired for exposing that about CPAP and BiPAP and patients being put on the ventilator, like straight away to the ventilator, to be on a closed system. The patients don't know any better. They don't have family with them. There is no one there with them to advocate for them. So they are scared and they give consent. The ventilators have high PEEP, high pressure, which then causes barotrauma. It causes trauma to the lungs. Dr. Siddell, Cameron Kyle Siddell, a few weeks ago put out a video. He's in New York City, and he put out a video saying something is not right, like we're not treating this correctly. We're doing something wrong. This doesn't make sense. They pulled his video from YouTube and they took him out of ICU because they couldn't have one doctor going against the grain, going against their protocol. The protocol is propofol or some kind of sedation because they're on the ventilator, and IV antibiotics. There's no hydroxychloroquine. They're not using that combination with Zithromax. They're not using zinc, vitamin C, high doses of vitamins A and D. They laugh. This is what she's told me. They laugh at that. She says this is a nightmare. It's out of a horror movie and I don't want to be a part of this. There are people who are a full code, and yet, if they crash, they're not doing compressions because it will spread the virus. Full code, not doing compressions. Family is not there. They have no one to answer to. No one is being held accountable. A code was called and no one came. So sometimes they're not even resuscitating people. Again, left to rot and die. They're not given blood because we know that the blood is not oxygenated in these COVID patients. We know that. There are doctors all around the world sounding the alarms. These are the drugs that work. This is the pathophysiology of the disease. This is what's happening. And for some reason, it's not changing. Even though we know, some of us know what's going on, nothing is changing on the front lines. They stay in the same PPE all shift, except for the top pair of gloves. So 2 pairs of gloves, or I don't know, maybe more than 2, but they're only changing the gloves on the outside. Gown, mask, whatever else stays the same because all patients are COVID patients. So if it's a COVID floor, it's all COVID, but it's not because some of them are rule out COVID. So even if they rule out COVID and they're not COVID, they're going to get COVID because they're using the same PPE all shift and they're carrying that contamination to all of the patients. They're not changing their PPE. They're not going into rooms. So they're running long tubing into the room so that they can manage the tubing from outside of the rooms. So if they're not going into the rooms, that means they're not assessing the patients as frequently as you would be otherwise assessing your patients. They are not doing rapid result tests. You're lucky if you get results in 5 days. Okay, this is coming from my friend who is in New York City right now on assignment, who went there to help, and this is what she's finding. It's a horror movie, she says. Not because of the disease, but because of the way it's being handled. She said, we need help, and people are sitting there waiting in the hotels. Money, I guess, it's being paid for by FEMA, and yet they're still understaffed. And there are hundreds of people, hundreds of nurses in the hotels waiting to be called onto a shift. So there is manpower enough if the goal were to actually save people, but resources are not being utilized properly or to full capacity in a way that maximizes the patient benefit or improves the outcomes. The records and charting are crap. And now some of these hospitals in New York City are probably crappy on a good day. So you add in the fear of COVID and the fear of the whole pandemic and forget it. So if you're in a crappy hospital with crappy nurses, let's face it, all of us nurses have worked with crappy nurses before who don't care. So now you add in this, forget it. And they're having people do things that they can't do. So maybe things that they're not proficient in. So maybe a nurse who's not familiar or comfortable with using a ventilator. And it's that figure it out mentality. Figure it out. These patients are critical and they're crashing, figure it out. So nurses are being celebrated as heroes, right? We see how like the fire trucks and the police are like lining up and practically having these parades and celebrating them as heroes. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure in some parts of the country and other ICUs, I have friends that are working on the front lines in ICU and they are good nurses. And some of them are heroes, but we have nurses being celebrated as heroes who are killing people. They're not heroes. And they're being brainwashed to think they're doing something great just by going to work because they're brave enough to go to work. Well, what are you doing at work? You're certainly not saving people if you're not even running codes. You're not even going into patient rooms. You're a coward. You're hurting people. You're killing them. You're contributing to the problem. I know I'm going to get hate mail for this, and that's fine, because people are dying who don't have to die. Again, there's no family there, so no one's being held accountable. And once these people get intubated, they're being scared into giving consent to be intubated, and then for a lot of them, it's over. And there's nobody going to be held accountable. And there's nobody looking out for them. They are completely by themselves. There's like a total lack of critical thinking. It's out the window. And people are scared to speak up. And one person alone isn't going to change the overall culture of a hospital or a system or a city. Like I said, Dr. Cameron Kyle Seidel's video was pulled from YouTube. And he was pulled from the ICU for sounding the alarm and going against the grain. So people are sounding the alarm. It's just not changing anything, apparently. So what can you do? Buck the system. I'm really fortunate I don't have any family in New York City that I personally have to worry about. If there are people that you are worried about, or maybe it's not even New York City, maybe you're in another city that's being really hard hit and you're just hearing really bad things coming out of that city, buck the system. Something is wrong in the system. So go against the grain. Request records immediately. Records, transcripts, immediately. If there's a medication that you want your loved one to be given, report it as an at-home medication and demand that it be continued. That's just a tip from inside the system. If you want a medication to be given, you've got to report that it's an at-home medication and that you demand that it be continued. Your loved one is not going to have you in there advocating for them once they go in. You're not allowed in. The only reports that we're able to get of what's going on are coming from the inside, and people are afraid to speak out. People have lost their jobs. Do not give consent for intubation if you don't want to be intubated or your loved one to be intubated. Demand non-invasive or less invasive ventilation methods. As soon as you give that consent, you might not come out of it. Now, in some cases, it might be appropriate. We just don't know. We know that it's being used inappropriately in a lot of cases, and that the ventilators are making people worse.
How many of you have seen the movie Hostel? That's exactly what's going on in these hospitals in New York City. The doctors, the nurses, they're murdering people, ladies and gentlemen, shoving a huge tube down their throats and jamming it into their lungs and murdering people. That way they can come on television and say, see, we have an outbreak, bitches. Nobody else is getting murdered in this country except these people out there in New York. What's up? New York in the house, killing people for prime time, for NBC. Stay at home, ladies and gentlemen. Stay locked down because these people are fucking killing you. Now, how many of you found the nurses' testimony here to be authentic, to be credible? I found her testimony to be very credible. That's why we're playing it. Not only that, but we've got video from patients inside the hospital. Why don't we listen to what they have to say?
So many patients into this corner that they've locked me into the corner, and it's impossible for doctors and nurses to access my bed, which means that I'm not getting any medical care. I haven't gotten my vitals taken in 5 hours, and I haven't been given any medicine even longer than that.
Oh, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. Should we play that again? Let's play that again.
So many patients into this corner that they've locked me into the corner, and it's impossible for doctors and nurses to access my bed.
They just locked him into a corner. They don't even check up on him. No medication, nothing. They're just like, die. They wait for people to get, bad enough so that they can like jam the tube down their throat. Like, look, we did our job. Then they run around, the city, in this cult of death city, and they're all like celebrated like, ministers, priests for this human sacrifice. That's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. And you have to wonder why these tests aren't picking up the virus. They're like, oh, we're just not picking up the virus. I mean, the CDC had to send out tainted tests to infect people and to make sure that there's no way that they wouldn't pick up the virus because it's already there. It's everywhere on the test packaging, inside, outside, contaminating hospitals, patients that were getting the swabs, the works, right? And, they're saying that, oh, yeah, people are testing positive and whatever. But we're also hearing that the tests don't work. The tests don't work. Just look at the testing fiasco right now. They're trying not to talk about it. But we've been, sharing the articles of who is talking about it on our website, stfnreport.com. And, it's Wall Street Journal, it's New York Times, it's Fox News, it's USA Today, it's everybody. Like, the testing don't work, maybe next month, the testing don't work. That's why these testing sites are empty. The testing don't work. Why aren't they picking up the virus? Perhaps there is no virus. And people are wondering, well, what's causing the symptoms? It's the death towers, stupid. That's what people have been talking about. This 60 gigahertz 5G sapping the oxygen levels. We're hearing from ICU doctors. It's like, it's so weird. It's like they don't have respiratory distress, but their oxygen level is so low. It's like they're on top of a mountain. Something is just fizzing away the oxygen from their blood. It's the 5G bitches. They roll out 5G in China in November, and all of a sudden it's a raging outbreak of some kind of mysterious disease. And they're like, what do we call it? It's the virus. It's the virus. Of course it's the virus. What else could it be? Ladies and gentlemen,
This morning, the FBI raided a Macomb County business because of coronavirus. We are told that it's related to possible improper treatments at the Allure Medical Spa in Shelby Township. Nick Monticelli joins us here now live at the business on 26 Mile and Van Dyke, gathering more information. What have you learned, Nick?
Rhonda, I got to tell you, the information has been kind of spiraling all afternoon, all morning, really, because originally this raid we were told was because of the coronavirus, and now we hear the other side of the story, the medical spa saying it's a big misunderstanding. Either way, there are a lot of people in this community who have questions, especially those who came to this medical spa for treatment. FBI agents executed a search warrant early this morning aimed at Allure Medical Spa, headquartered in this building at 26 Mile Road in Van Dyke. Agents went inside wearing full protective gear to protect themselves from possible exposure. Sources are telling us this raid is because Allure has been allegedly performing COVID-19 treatments, yet there is no approved cure-all. On Allure's Facebook page, a post dated April 18th says, "At Allure Medical, we have been using intravenous vitamin C therapy to treat COVID-19 in non-hospitalized patients with great results." The post then points to a treatment study, which many exist, to see if vitamin C can help. After talking to staff members off camera, some believe this is a misunderstanding, saying the vitamin C is meant to help prevent or shorten the duration. In fact, Dr. Charles Mokes, who owns Allure Medical Spa, did a Facebook Live video giving the IV vitamin C treatment for free to a Detroit cop. In the video, he says, quote, "What I'm finding in practice, I treat a lot of COVID patients, is that if we catch people early, get them on intravenous vitamin C, they turn around really fast. But these federal agents feel differently.
These federal agents feel differently. So this is a medical doctor practicing medicine in his own business and administering vitamin C. He posts about it on Facebook, and here comes the fucking FBI dressed like astronauts. Now look at their gear. You see the semi-respirator there? And you see the filters. It's like a gas mask. It's like basically the bottom portion of a gas mask without the visor. And they've got the filters, which are like, super filters. But they're not wearing the N95. The N95 don't work, right? This is what works. So this is what they should be telling people to wear, right? But it gets better because you got the FBI basically showing up not only in spacesuits, but in military fatigues. Look at this. They think they're soldiers now. And you learn about the FBI, they've got their own foreign intelligence division. They think they're the CIA now. And you heard about them planting evidence against Trump. They think they're, the, what do you call these people? They show up, they cover up the crimes like in the Illuminati Vegas massacre, right? They're like ditching all the evidence. They're breaking windows, making it seem like that was the sniper's nest. I mean, we've got it all on tape. We've covered. I mean, anytime the FBI shows up, it's like the Gestapo. They're there to basically, cause trouble. They're despicable people. The whole thing should be shut down. The FBI, all of it should be just shut down. Every state's got a Bureau of Investigation. State powers, bitches. 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Know your Bill of Rights. There's a lot of English-speaking countries that don't even have a Bill of Rights. The British, the Australians, the Canadians. They're all subjects, slaves of the crown. But look at these fucktards show up to a medical practice who's just administering vitamin C. This is a well-known kind of like, off-the-cuff therapy. A lot of people like to get vitamin C IV style for all sorts of things. So here comes the FBI after the guy posts about it on Facebook, right? Raids a business, a legitimate business, a medical practice, a medical doctor administering vitamin C, basically orange juice, right? And they're like, oh no, you can't fucking do that. Are you kidding me? What country do we live in? This is not America anymore. This is no longer the Free Republic. This is something else. It's much more diabolical. And that's really the word, Diablo, diabolical. It's like the Luciferian propaganda you see on television, nonstop 24/7 programming. Desperate housewives, go commit adultery, Breaking Bad, let's go kill somebody and, get rid of the body in a vat of acid or something like that. It's just nonstop product placement for anti-Christian ideology, and the whole system is corrupt. The politicians, the media, the corporations, it's like a trifecta of terror, an axis of evil. That's what they are. And that is the enemy of the people, we the people. And we should be, demanding our country back And people just gotta, set a date. July 4th looks really good. We just take over. We take over the capitals. We take over, the government buildings. We the people. It's our country. And whoever these stooges are, these puppets, it's illegitimate. It's like this little club, and you can only elect them. Have you noticed that? It's only Republicans or Democrats. You can only elect them. That's your only choice. What kind of freedom is that? What kind of freedom is that? These people are illegitimate. It's some kind of like mafia thing, racketeering going on, and they need to be deemed as a terrorist organization. Democrats, Republicans, politicians, script readers on television, they're terrorists. And they're responsible for mass murder. They're responsible for letting this virus in. They're all guilty of war crimes, not just in this administration, but previous administrations. The whole system has to go. We need the boogaloo. July 4th. We need the boogaloo, bitches. That's what we need. Fuck this system and fuck all these, bad people out there, whether it be bad doctors or bad nurses or bad politicians or bad neighbors and shit. Fuck all these people. They gotta go. We want to deport them to China. They're communists. They need to go back to China. We want to get the big slave ships, and just start chaining people and sending them off to China. That sounds, weird, don't it? Fuck them. The boogaloo. That's what we need. I don't want to hear about politically correct. I'm tired of politically correct. All these people on television who are molesting children, they want to be like, oh, be polite, be nice. Fuck you. Fuck you and the whole crew over there at 666 Fifth Avenue, 666 Pennsylvania Avenue. Who puts the White House at the tip of a pentagram? They need to basically bulldoze that entire city. It's nothing but swamp. And look, there's a reason why we have 50 states. It's not all, the United States of America federal land out there. It's like 50 individual states. Those 50 states, or the original 13, they made the federal government. It's not the federal government that made the states. They didn't give you your rights. You made a country. You made a government to protect you with all sorts of rights to protect yourselves. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, the right to bear arms. You are the militia. You are the resistance out there. And you're letting them gas you, kill you, rape your children, take everything away from you. They've bio-nuked you. And, people that go into the hospitals, they're killing them. And then they're charging you an arm and a leg for it, quite literally. If you're joining us late, you're definitely going to want to watch this on replay on demand. Now, we're starting to learn about the who's who. This is bigger than you might think, ladies and gentlemen. We got suspect number 1, Bezos. Suspect number 2, Gates. You kill the business, and I'll get rid of the people. But we got another suspect, ladies and gentlemen.
If we can turn off the...
Mayor, that's like your theme music.
Okay. I meant that. Can we said something's playing? Can we just stop this and maybe we'll start again? Okay. I understand that. Still turn it off. It's a little bit too important for playing music. Let me start again as soon as we can do this.
Pay attention.
All right. Let me start again because this is just too important to get disruptive. And maybe we'll just take everything outside.
Take him outside. Kill him. He's serious, man. Look at that guy.
Okay. There we go. Let's start again.
They got rid of him. They got rid of him, ladies and gentlemen. The real eyes of a psychopath. Now, we've talked about, Event 201. We've talked about Agenda 21, the CLADE X exercise, Crimson Contagion. This was all put together by the Bloomberg School of Health and John Hopkins. The same John Hopkins that you're seeing, all over television with the map, the sick map. Day one, they had it all ready to go. Why? This is their program. This is their virus. It's a new world order virus. And, the communist left has a big part to play in this. Remember in 2016, when it was Hillary versus Trump and Hillary was coughing and everybody was making fun of her, right? Guess who's coughing now? Remember when she dropped dead basically on the 9/11 memorial? Guess who's dropping dead now, bitches? This is Hillary's revenge. This is a Democrat communist virus. But Trump let it in because he's a Democrat too. He worked for NBC for 11 years. He's from New York. Every New Yorker's a Democrat pretty much at heart. They're all libtards at heart. And it wasn't until recently that he's a conservative. Why? Because it's a scam. You always like the con man. Admit it. You always like the con man. There's nothing special about what we're saying here. You just don't want to believe it because you've been programmed. You think he's on your side. He's rolling out the death towers and you think he's on your side. What do you got? Stockholm syndrome out there? What's your problem? He's like, drink the bleach, bitches. And you're like, yeah, way to go. Drink the bleach. No, he didn't actually say that. But he's kind of saying that. And regardless, he's locking up Assange, letting Hillary go, genociding the Kurds, and now he's genociding your ass, ladies and gentlemen. He didn't step in when everybody was getting censored. He was like, yeah, keep going. He invited Zuckerberg over for dinner. He was like, come on over. Come on over, Marcus. Come on over. And of course, he loves Marcus Zuckerberg because Marcus is a communist, hardcore Chinese communist, hardcore. You know anything about his profile? He's half Chinese, man. Hardcore China. He loves it. He loves the communism. He loves the censorship. And as soon as, somebody's like talking about something that works, they come in, they send the FBI. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, the video guy. It's actually the program. It's actually the San Francisco program. All programs basically, on the computer come from San Francisco, Sodom and Gomorrah. And so they tend to glitch often. It's like Windows. It used to be, Windows 7 worked a lot better than this new Windows 10 bullshit. And now you need twice the RAM just to make it work half as fast. And Skype, just took a big dump. It's all fucked up too. Everything now that Microsoft makes is basically fucked up. And they're doing it on purpose to irritate you. It's just like Apple, like when, they release an update, or like a new phone, then they release an update and all of your old phones, like all of a sudden start going slower. These people are out to get you, man. And they wear these uniforms to pretend like an actor, like that they're authentic, like the FBI uniform. You know what's behind the FBI uniform? A fucking libtard that needs to go back to China. And you know what's behind, the politicians? It's Chinese money. They're communists. They've all sold out to China, all of them. And the vast majority, maybe Tom Cotton's okay, but the vast majority have sold their asses to China. They with the Astroglide to boot. They're like, oh yeah, do whatever you want with it. Just give me that money. Yeah, I love it. And it's just like, no wonder everything's going to shit. No wonder everything's going to shit. We're little by little, we're turning into the communist China. That's what's happening. And if we let this, takeover happen, it's just going to be too bad for America. And I think, too many people paid blood and treasure so that we could be free. And I don't think any of us should just stand by and let these, fucking sellouts in Washington, D.C., sell this country off to China bit by bit or whatever foreign buyer it may be, ladies and gentlemen. And, all of these politicians, they're corrupt. And all of these people on TV, they're just reading a script that pleases their sponsors, the corporate sponsors. And, they're all basically working for the dark side. And we shouldn't be accepting this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. We should be pushing back. And we need everybody to, step up and push back against, this beast system, the 5G towers, the propaganda on television, everything, anything, once you get your freedom back, part of it anyways, go out there, organize against the death towers, organize against fluoride, organize against vaccines, organize against this corrupt new world order while you still can, and get people on the same page. It's we the people versus this control grid, this matrix that's trying to enslave us and kill us. And this, this war has gone hot. They might not be shooting bullets at you, but they're shooting viruses. And we might not have a Wuhan Virology Institute or a CDC at our disposal. But if they're opening fire, then we have a right to fire back. We have a right to defend ourselves. And it's right there in the Constitution. These people, this government has become a tyranny, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. Now, of course, the corrupt, FBI, Department of Justice, they might come around and try and lock you up like Julian Assange. Fuck them. Ladies and gentlemen, the system is corrupt. It's illegitimate. It has no authority. It's been disbanded by we the people. The power is with the people, not with this tyranny. And you need to remind them of that with the Boogaloo. And you saw that in Operation Gridlock. When the entire city becomes the militia, there's nobody that's going to stand in your way. Not the 5-0, nobody. Right? They couldn't lock down Iraq. They're not locking down America. Fuck these people. Take your country back. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.